If you're going to use YAAC in the field, your setup matters. Today, let's look at how I set up YAAC for both general field use and when we're covering events. Stick around and we'll get right to it. Hey, welcome back guys. Jason, KM4ACK. Ever since that video come out about how we used APRS at the air show, I've had several people want to know exactly how I set YAAC up for an event like that. So we're going to walk through that today and show you exactly how I set it up so I can keep track of everything. Now this is a very basic setup. We've got the X1 Carbon that I'm running for the laptop. We've got that Anchor battery pack, and that is powering both the laptop and the D74 HT. Can't remember the model number of these, but I'll leave it down in the description below. And then we've got that Teflon 12 volt to PD adapter. So that's taking 12 volt from USB-C power delivery. I'm sorry, it's taking USB-C from this, doing power delivery and converting it to 12 volts where it's plugged in right to the side of the laptop so that I don't have to worry about the battery life on that D74. All right, so inside of YAAC, the first thing I want to do after I've got my radio configured, and I've already got that done for this particular instance, but the first thing I want to do after that is get radar data displaying inside of YAAC. I'm going to come up here to View, and you would think you would just put a check mark right here by weather, but that doesn't do it. Come right down here to raster maps and go ahead and click on that. And then right here, this bottom left option is load US weather data. Let's go ahead and click on that. And you will see that it gives us this new entry up here, and that's enabled. If by chance you're doing an event and you don't have an internet connection, you can disable this because it will throw an error in YAAC if it can't get this data. It's not a big deal. You just click OK and it goes right on by it. But now that we've got radar data in there, let's take a look at actually how I configure YAAC. So I've got YAAC, the main screen, open. Now one thing you want to do is you want to create some bookmarks for your map for the area that you're going to be working. So let's assume that I was going to be covering my hometown of Murfreesboro. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to right click and say center here. And then I'm going to start zooming in on that area. So this is the town of Murfreesboro, which is my hometown. Now I want to come right up here to the bookmarks, and I'm going to click on that bookmark and then bookmark this view. And it's going to ask me for a name. So I'm just going to give it Murfreesboro right there. Now, if I wanted to say, okay, this is the airport right here. Let's say I wanted to zoom in on that specific area. Let me get this to close here. I'm going to right click again and say center here one more time. And then I want to zoom in on the airport itself. Now I could go up here and create another bookmark for the airport. And now if I ever want to jump between those two, I can simply select the bookmark and then click on Murfreesboro, and it moves me right back out. So that's kind of helpful when I'm working events to be able to jump in and out of different areas that I might want to see. For the air show, I think I created 3 different bookmarks. One was an overview, one was the east side, and one was the west side. Okay, so the first thing I want to show you guys is how I set this up when we're not covering an event. I'm just in the field and want to have YAAC open so I can track APRS data. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to jump out to my preferred view right here. This gives me an overview of kind of Middle Tennessee with Nashville up here in the top left corner. Murfreesboro is right here. Once I've got that map exactly where I want it, I'm going to press the Super key in Linux Mint, which is the Windows key. If you're running a Windows machine, I'm going to press and hold it and hit my left arrow key. That's going to move this over to this side of the screen, so it's taking up exactly the left half of the screen. Now, if I need to adjust this map just a little bit, we can always do that in this view. The next thing I want to do is I'm going to grab a station list. So I'm going to press Control S on the keyboard, and that's going to bring up this station list. Now, I'm going to use something in Mint called the Snap feature, and I'm going to take this window and I'm going to drag it to this top right corner, and that's going to get it to occupy that top right half of the screen right there. Now the next thing I want to do is go ahead and get messages set up so that I can view any incoming messages. So I'm going to come back over to the main window now, and I'm going to click on View, Messages, and Raw Messages. We'll go ahead and open that up. We want to uncheck this box right here because I don't want to see every message. I only want to see those messages addressed to me. So I'll go ahead and clear that out, and I'm going to take this and drag it down to the bottom right corner, and it should occupy just this bottom right space. So that gives me my basic view of what I need. I've got a list of all stations right here. We've got the map over here, and then we've got any incoming messages right here. If I need to send an outgoing message, then I'm going to come right down here to this bottom left and be able to type who it's to, and then go ahead and send the message right here. Now, one nice thing about this station list, we can sort this however we want to. So we can sort it by name, or we can sort it by last received. Last received is what I typically use, but if I'm hunting a specific station and there's a ton of stations in this list, then I'll go ahead and just sort those by name real quick to make it easier to find a particular station by their call sign, since this will put them in alphabetical order. The other nice thing about it is if I need to see exactly where somebody is at on the map, I can double click on any one of these names and you'll see that it puts those green arrows right over here on the map pointing to that particular station. Now, one other view that I like to have pulled up is the bulletin board. So if I'm going to run that, then I'm going to come right back up here to the view menu. I'm going to come down to messages, and I'm going to click on the bulletin board. That's going to open this new bulletin board window. So if there's any bulletins that come out, they will display here. Now, typically I don't leave them on my main screen. So I'm just going to right click on that and say move to Workspace 2. And what that does, I'm going to use some keyboard shortcuts in Mint, specifically the Control, Alt, and right arrow key. That brings me right over here to my second workspace where I've got the bulletin boards pulled up. Now this second workspace will come in handy here in just a second when I show you how we would set this up if we were running an event. And having multiple workspaces is critical if you're only running one monitor, because I can quickly then jump back and forth between these, just holding that Control Alt and then using my left or right arrow keys. So if it's just a day in the field and not some sort of an event, this is the way I'm going to set up YAAC to use while we're in the field. Now, let me show you how we're going to build on that if we're actually running an event. So the primary difference here is we want to be able to track individual stations up close and personal. In order to do that, we're going to come back over here to our main map display, and we're going to use this KU4B station right here. I'm just going to get my mouse right on top of it, and I'm going to right click. When this context menu pops up, I'm going to click Map the Station. And what that's going to do is that's going to give me a map. Now, it may not be zoomed in close enough depending on how far you expect that station to move. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to just start zooming in on that particular station so that I can, I've got a pretty zoomed in view of him. Once I get that, I'm going to go ahead and move that to the next workspace, or the second workspace. So let's go ahead and move that to workspace 2, and then let's pick a couple of more stations around here. Let's see what we've got. We'll just go back to our station list. I'm going to double click on one of those. This actually is not going to be a movable object, but it's one that's on the map right now. So I'm going to go ahead and right click on that and say map the station. And once again, we're going to kind of zoom in on that one. And then we're going to right click and move that to workspace 2. And let's grab one more just for the fun of it. We'll take this NZ4K right here. And again, I picked something that is not really moving, but let's just go ahead. Let me see if I can zoom in on that map for just a second. And I tell you what, we'll do this one because he's out there by himself. I'm going to right click and say map the station one more time, and then we'll get zoomed in on that a little bit closer. And once again, we're going to move that to workspace 2. Now, I've got my map kind of messed up over here, so I'm going to go back and just jump to my preferred view, and that gives me my overview of the whole area. Now, let's go ahead and move over to the second workspace, and you'll see that we've kind of got a little bit of a mess here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take the bulletin board, we're going to move it up to this top corner, we'll take one of these stations, we'll move it down here to the bottom corner, and then let's see, we should have 2 more stations. Yep, there's one. So we'll do the bottom corner here, right like that. And we'll take this last one and we'll go right there. So that gives me 4 panes, so that 3 of these are going to be used for tracking individual stations, and then that one in the top right is just covering the bulletin board. So now I can quickly jump between these 2 screens to be able to monitor every single thing going on. So when we're at events, I might have 6 or 7 different stations on this screen that I'm individually tracking, but it kind of gives me an idea of exactly where everybody is located. Now, one other thing to point out here is, let's go back to the main map for a second, and let's just zoom out a little bit. Again, this depends on if you have an internet connection. But in this particular case, I do have an internet connection, and when we were at the air show, I was running Starlink so that I made certain I had that internet connection. But you'll see that we've got some rain in Northwest Tennessee right here. So if this started moving down and in our direction, I'm going to get a little bit of a heads up before it starts impacting our event. And if it looks like it's going to be severe weather, well, then I'm going to go ahead and open up Supercell WX. I've done a whole video on that, and I'll leave a link to that down in the description below. So now you know how I set up YAAC depending on the circumstances. If you found today's information helpful, be sure to leave us a thumbs up before you head off. We will see you guys on the next one. Until then, 7-3.